Hello, I'm Tony, and welcome to the Tony Shap Show. Hi, everyone. This week I have Will with us. I'm super pumped to introduce him to you. I can't wait for him to share with us his background. He's got a huge background. I'll let him share that with you guys. And also, I'm super excited for him to share with us what he's up to. So with that said, Will, welcome to the Tony Shap Show.
Nice to be here, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just kick right into it. Let's just kick it off. So what's your one word open, Will?
I think if it was one word that I'm feeling right now, and that word would be driven. And I feel like I'm on a mission right now with two companies that I'm leading. One is Loop, and the other one is in Indigo Technologies. And I'm feeling that there's a mission, and I'm feeling driven.
That is fantastic. So let's talk about those two businesses. If you could kind of share with us, I always like to break it into three stages, your why, how you got started, and then where you are today, and also where you're going. So with that said, please go ahead and let us bring us up to speed with what you're up to.
Well, what I'm up to right now is I'm running two separate companies, but they also intersect in the middle. And on the one hand, I'm running a company that is a next generation payments and messaging platform to help businesses go from in store traditionally and then online in the 90s and 2000s and an in app to what's next is called in message commerce. And I want to give the tools for businesses that are billing or businesses that are sending out offers for those messages to be rich multi-mode messages that could be sent to your email, could be sent to your text. And when you open it, you're able to not only see the offer, but to press the pay button when you want to pay for your bill or pay for an offer. Use your fingerprint to unlock your authenticated digital credentials and be able to pay easily and safely. So that's one side of being able to have a in-message commerce platform, but also on the other side for consumers to have a universal credentials manager to be able to own their own payment data and be able to use it just about everywhere, whether you're talking about in the physical tap and pay just about everywhere, or online in-app and in-message to be able to use your credentials that's your own, that other people can't hack into, and basically your universal digital wallet, what it should be, not where everybody's divided. I got Apple, you got Samsung, and the other person's got Android, and none of us is really compatible. So that's one side, is this digital commerce enabler with a universal credential manager. But the other side is getting to know you from a consumer standpoint so that I can build my own data, my credentials, in a way that I own that data. So I can even build my trust score, let's say my credit score, my driving score, so that I can share it in a way that I get lower cost insurance from businesses that want a relationship with me. I get lower cost credit so that I can do the things that I need to do. So that is on the one side that I'm working towards, and I'll explain why the insurance and credit becomes important. So that's Loop. Now, the second company that I'm involved with is called Indigo Technologies, and we're building next generation electric vehicles that are based on robotic wheels. So electric motors have been around for a very long time, and but we're always just using these passive suspension systems to hold up the vehicle. We invented at MIT a new technology called Robotic Wheels that allows you to have not only propulsion in each wheel, but an active suspension that gives you a silky smooth ride, even in a very lightweight vehicle. And why do we care about that? It's because the electric vehicles of the future have to be way more efficient than the electric vehicles of today. I'm on my fourth Tesla now, but my Tesla weighs 4,900 pounds, way too heavy, and sucks up way too much energy and electricity. So what we want to do is to build ultra efficient electric vehicles that are 2 to 3 times lighter, 2 to 3 times faster to charge, 2 to 3 times smaller battery, 2 to 3 times less expensive. And that means much more efficient, so that we can have less greenhouse emissions that are out there, but not sacrifice comfort and not sacrifice handling. So these vehicles that we're about to create are going to be designed initially for gig economy drivers that are just, delivering our packages, our food, delivering us, for rides. And we want those really smooth rides for the right job, for the right vehicle. And we can get those, for about half the price. And our goal is to develop those vehicles for half the price of what current electric vehicles cost. Now, not only are we going to get it to half the price, even as you know, when we get vehicles down to that cost, it's still too expensive for the vast majority of those drivers to own it, because the real competition is not Tesla, it's not Rivian, none of those companies. The real competition is the used gas guzzlers that they're currently driving.
Mm.
So in order to attack that problem, we have to go back to the first solution that I talked about with OV-Loop, is to have more cost-effective insurance, more cost-effective finance, so that we can combine electric vehicle with finance and insurance to create a rental program that anyone could get into for less than what it would cost them to operate and maintain a used gas car. So only when we can do that can we really affect the climate, really affect, making an impact and scale the delivery of next generation commerce. So this next generation commerce becomes really powerful in that, we're talking about a new way to interact, new way to transact, and a new way to transport. So that's what drives me.
That's excellent. Share with us how you came up with the idea for the suspension. That's really interesting.
So it's not my initial invention. It's actually invented by Professor Ian Hunter, one of the most prolific inventors out of MIT. But I just happened to know him through a good friend, and then through understanding the technology that he has not only invested in but invented. I can see where the application of that technology can be, and we're turning that invention now into the commercialization phase so that we can make it an innovation. So yeah, it's not always me that invented the actual technology, but I'm the guy who loves to put technology and to see the potential in the technology, and then connect the dots to take it to commercialize it.
That's beautiful. I know Rolls-Royce's claim for the smooth carpet ride is the combination of the heaviness of the car with the air suspension. Same with Cadillac's Escalade with the magnetic ride, because it's over 6,000 pounds. And then to your point with Tesla, it's only the Model X and the Model S that have an air suspension because they have the weight, because you have to have weight with air suspension to get a smooth ride. But the ones that are not as heavy don't need an air suspension, but then you lose the comfort. So that's interesting you say that, because you're right. It's the weight that does not get the additional long range. But if you could introduce that and get this, the smooth ride, that's beautiful. I mean, I could talk about that for hours. So it's
Oh,
right
thanks. Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. We got to reduce the weight.
100%.
The only way to reduce the weight without sacrificing comfort and feel like you're in a golf cart, going 70 miles an hour, is you have to get robotic wheels that actively react to the road. So that's what's really cool about what we're doing.
That is really interesting. Let's talk about a recent win. Can you share with us something that you've experienced recently that's a win, and also what you learned from it, so our audience who's listening could have this as a gem to take away with?
Well, I would say wins are incremental, and then sometimes it takes a long time to build up before you get to a point of seeing the fruits of your labor. So it's many small wins that get to the larger wins. My last win, maybe I'll describe. being able to um, um, to launch Samsung Pay. And the win prior to that was to, get our LoopPay solution. Samsung acquired my last company, LoopPay, and and then, we were a small startup company, invented this magnetic secure transmission technology to be able to transmit one-time use tokens to existing point of sales that are using MagStripe, right? Not waiting for all of the new terminals to be in stores. So that initial win of my business partner inventing that technology, we thought, how do we put it into a digital wallet? So then that little win, which was really important of a breakthrough technology, just like the robotic wheel, allowed us to then demonstrate that next little win, which is we can transmit a real track data and make it pay at a regular store where they didn't even expect it to have contactless. That little win translated us into launching our own wallet. Then that little win allowed us to become the #1 rated wallet by Consumer Reports. And that little win then allowed Samsung to say, hey, we want that in our phones. And then that little win led to them acquiring us, which then allowed us to integrate. Now it's integrated into hundreds of millions of phones, actually well over 1 billion Samsung phones, and then letting people use Samsung Pay at 94% of existing point of sale. So I would say that's an example of how little wins add up to bigger wins.
That is really powerful, especially when you just kind of timelined it together. That's so powerful. I appreciate that. Let's talk about a not so win that you experienced and what you learned from it.
There's been lots of failures, and failures are really feedback to help us adjust. And I would say it's probably easier to count the failures than the wins, because without making mistakes, you're not going to get those little wins. So I would say every time you have a failure, it basically is another feedback to say, okay, how do you pivot? How do you adjust and adapt? And I would say, when I first naively got into mobile payments, I had just sold my company coming out of MIT, and I thought, how hard could it be to build a digital wallet, a mobile wallet? And this is black and white phones, Siemens, Motorola, and we thought we were going to build a digital wallet, for people to transact, because we can put a little smart card reader on the back of a phone. We thought, well, that was cool. Nobody's done that, and when we got out to market, what we recognized was that we were in a two-sided platform, and it was really hard to do. And in other words, consumers don't care about your new solution unless there's lots of merchants that accept the solution. And merchants don't care about the solution unless there's already lots of consumers that will use the solution. So you got a chicken and the egg problem. And when we went out there thinking that we were going to build a mobile wallet, within the number of months of us working at it, we recognized that this was flat wrong direction, and there was no way that we were going to solve that chicken and the egg problem. So, facing almost death, we figured out we have to pivot or die. So we ended up readjusting from a two-sided platform. We took that little smart card reader, and instead of a consumer device, we turned it into the first pocket-sized point of sale in the world. We added a MagStripe reader, and we put a SIM card in there. We turned it into a little square before square for merchants to accept credit cards. So it's okay to fail, and your assumption's completely wrong initially, but if we can learn from it and pivot, we can then actually turn something of a lesson into something that could be a little win.
Absolutely. I think, if, like you said, if you could learn from it, sometimes, speaking from my personal experience, it's harder to learn from a failure because you're so caught up in that, right? But if you could just let it be and what's so, and just learn from it and move on, right? And then to your point with the wins, I love what you said because I couldn't help not to stop thinking about it right now. You got to get just base hits or first downs across the board, and then those are little wins that get you to the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl is selling to Samsung, Samsung. So that's really great.
Yeah,
Now,
I wouldn't even count that the Super Bowl. That's still interim steps. And to me, it's how do I continue to make an impact? And there's lots that I learned from my friends at Samsung, and lots that I learned from that experience. Then the next question for me is how do I then apply those experiences to what I'm doing now with OV Loop, and how do I make it even better? And what were the things that not so much of what we did accomplish, but what else can we still accomplish? And that's the things that drive me.
that's wonderful. Will, have you ever considered writing a book?
I'm too busy right now to be thinking about writing
I,
books.
I'm just gonna go on the one here. I think there's a lot of value and a lot of difference you can make for people. I think, and I'm so honored to have you on this podcast because I think my audience is gonna get a chance to learn from you and what you're all about and where you're up to. But also, if I think you have a lot to offer. I think to the business world because of your experience and your success. So, for what it's worth, I could say if you do ever write a book, I guess I'm the first one that bugged you about it. So,
Thank you. Thank
of
you,
course,
Tony. No,
of
I
course.
appreciate that.
Let's. Well, if we were 21, if you were back in MIT, your days back then, what would you tell your 21-year-old self?
Um, Actually, when I was 21, I wasn't at MIT. I went to MIT in grad school. Um, about 6 years later, I actually spent after undergrad, I spent almost 6 years as a nuclear submarine officer, and going through that process, which was a great learning experience for me. And but when I was 21, frankly, I really wasn't sure where the journey is going to take me yet. And even when I was 27 at MIT, I still wasn't sure where my journey was going to take me. And and I would say, looking back now, I'm glad that I was able to put my passion into the things that I was doing, even though what I'm doing now as an entrepreneur may not have been the same. I wasn't going to be a career military, but what I what I did do was by joining the nuclear submarine force and going through that experience, I was serving to learn, and and then I'm learning to serve. So that experience, as I was just about to enter the military, um, I didn't know that it was eventually going to lead me towards where I am today, but that also shaped me in many ways. And and when I say learn to serve and serve to learn, that is a circular loop. So let's say you're serving here to learn, and then you're learning here to serve, and ultimately it's to be able to serve a greater purpose than us. But that's a journey, that's a lifelong journey. And we don't know where exactly we're going to make our biggest impact. But, um, but if we just follow that, even when we're younger, it's okay to not be where you ultimately are going to be, but just serve so you can learn, and then continue to learn to serve. And eventually we'll figure out what is our purpose and what drives us, and what is the kind of passion that fuels ultimately our purpose and our impact to this world.
Perfect. There's chapter 5 for your book. Chapter 5 right there. That's really great. That one's going to stick out for me. I want to definitely have that takeaway, and it's going to always be in the back of my head. So I appreciate that sharing, that moment for you to share that with us. So, what's that one question that I should be asking you, Will, that I did not ask you? What would that be?
Well, that one's, I don't know if there's any question that you should be asking that you're not asking, but for, I'm just thinking out loud whether your audience, whether your audience, what they would want to know or learn. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, um, maybe something that is a little bit deeper to, to help people understand that all of us sometimes have barriers and roots that sometimes hold us back, and and what are some self-discoveries that um, we can listen to ourselves and go back and try to find maybe some of those false beliefs that sometimes hold us back. And if I was sitting in your shoes, maybe I would say, hey, you know, have you ever discovered any false beliefs about yourself that have held you back? And and how were you able to overcome that? And what questions did you ask? And if you were to ask that, maybe I'll share a little bit of something. Again, the goal is to try to be helpful to people that are listening and that are on their own journey. So for me, I think um, I've always been an achiever, and I'll give you the short version of this without going into too much details. However, there has been and had been something that has held me back psychologically that went all the way back to my childhood, and and um, and that self-doubt, whatever the self-doubt um, had come from, um, I needed to really go back to find out where that self-doubt was coming from. And for my case, I've seen it surface from time to time where my ego got the better of me. And when my ego got the better of me, I know that that's not my true self. And you can tell when those things affect you. So one evening many years ago, with the help of my wife, she was patient enough to listen to me, vent and try to explore, where some of these, these chips on my shoulder and these egos had flare-ups have taken place, and I was able to trace all the way back to an incident that I had even, put it out of my mind, um, with a relationship from with my mother a long time ago, where she made me feel like I wasn't, and it was her mental condition and illness that I didn't fully realize. And we were in China at the time. I was 10 years old, but I was able to trace back to that one incident even that became a root, kind of like a weed that was buried. And every once in a while, the weed would pop up. You'd cover it over it with dirt and sometimes, and you ignore it, but the root is always there. But going back to really understanding that all of us come from a place of power and come from a place of purity and potential, that we should never let anyone tell us that we're not good enough or we're not loved enough. And if we can find the sources of those roots, and sometimes there may be multiple roots and weeds that you have to weed out, don't ignore those, is my advice to folks. Examine those deeply, see if you can find the root cause, and then change from the false beliefs that were there into recognizing that those were just false beliefs. Now I have to reshift, and then that lifted a level of weight off my shoulders. So being able to everybody has different backgrounds, and sometimes those things that hold us back also fueled us, but they're also a baggage, right? So that chip on your shoulder sometimes fuel you as a, hey, I'm going to prove them wrong. But the reality is that chip on the shoulder is also an anchor. And if we can free ourselves from that anchor and then seek the potential that we talked about earlier in terms of that purpose in life, then we feel like we're ourselves. And then our drive becomes genuine. And don't get me wrong, it's still going to be hard if you're, an entrepreneur doing what you're doing, or just, even if you're not an entrepreneur going through life is sometimes hard. But if we can free ourselves from some of those baggage and some of those false beliefs, that's something that I would encourage anyone who feels like that there's something there that's holding them back to explore deeply and to invest that time.
Will, wow, that was really deep, and I'm super grateful for you to share that with us. That was a huge takeaway for me. I'm sure the audience will be right there with me as well when they're listening to this. Um, Having said that, sadly, we're coming to a close here. Can you share with us how our listeners could find out more information about your two companies?
So my one company, OVLoop, it's just ovloop.com. The other one is indigotech.com, INDIGOTECH.com. And you can also find out a little bit more about me at willgraylin.com, or you can just email me at will@ovloop.com.
Beautiful. I'll put that in the show notes as well for everyone that's listening. And can you sign us off with a one-word close?
Gratitude. Gratitude. Always don't forget to be grateful.
I am super grateful for this conversation.
Thank you, Tony, for having me. I really appreciate it. And really appreciate the work that you're doing to inspire others.
Thank you so much, Will. I couldn't have done it. I can't do it without super, you know, high achievers and high capable person like yourself. So without you, I couldn't be that platform. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And there you go. I hope you enjoyed it, and great to have you, and thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. Till next time, onwards and upwards.